Hi, hello. Welcome to BRR Knowledge Center. And in this today's session, we'll talk about how to implement throttling to the web API request. So, what is throttling? So, throttling is nothing but the limiting rate of your request. That means if you have a API which is having different endpoints, and if you wanted to implement a rate limit to your endpoints, that way I think if you wanted to restrict any user or the client to browse a number of requests, then you need to implement throttling. So API throttling allows you to control the way an API is used. That way I think you need to have more security and denial of access service or denial of service kind of security issues which are going to be introduced if you don't have any throttling on web API. Throttling allows you to set permissions as to whether certain API calls are valid or not. And also throttling indicate a temporary state and are used to control the data that clients can access through an API. So when a throttle is triggered, you can disconnect a user or just reduce the response rate. And that way you can showcase the message saying that you have exceeded the rate limit, and you just try same thing after some time. So you can define a throttling at the application or API or user level as well. So when you have an API like in the .NET Core or .NET, and you can set a throttling settings in the API level or user level or application level. That way I think you can restrict user to not a browser call your endpoints more than the configure count of requests, right? So as a developer, you have a control over what applications and which users can use your APIs. So you know that because you are a developer. Just like permissions, a combination of multiple throttles may be used on a single request. You can even have multiple levels of throttling based on the user. Suppose, for example, you can restrict sensitive information from external developers while giving access to the same for internal developers, right? So, and coming to here, we'll get into the practical part. So I'm just going to open the Visual Studio 2022, and that way I think we'll have to see like how we are going to showcase the throttling concept. And I have a service API, which was developed in .NET Framework 6.0 framework. And so it was a location registration. So it was already have it, and it is in .NET Framework 6.0. So here, so I have a couple of endpoints here. If you look at here, I have these many couple of endpoints like get location, add location, delete location, and edit location. And if you can run this, and you can see like how my application is running based on the endpoints you have been exposed here. If I go and run here, kind of stuff here. You go and run this, and you can check here. Let's check. Okay, let me think of it, and let's run this. So here I have API which is running right now, get locations, and here I can go and I can execute and I can get all the locations here. Right now I have 2 locations, and now with this API I wanted to implement kind of a rate limit, a throttling to my get locations method, and that way I think how things are going to permit to know like how the message is showing to the end user, like how many requests are executed in the uh, configured no time. So now this is what the default get locations are calling for me, my method. And now I go back to my API, and I'm going to try to implement the throttling concept here. If you want to implement a throttling in the .NET framework, so we need to add ASP.NET Core rate limit namespace NuGet package reference here. Select these dependencies and go to here and try to search for ASP.NET Core rate limit. This is the reference which you need to add to your solution. And once you select this and install it, then it is going to be added to your NuGet packages. This is the ASP.NET Core rate limit. Once you add this, so your application is ready to accept the configuration part as part of rate limiting. And next thing was you need to add the configuration stuff here, like so what are all the configurations you are going to give it here. I'm just adding kind of configurations here, IP rate limit or limiting, or I'll do this. This is what I'm going to say here. These are the configurations right now. So IP rate limiting is my configuration section name here. Here I'm adding keys like enable endpoint rate limiting true, and stack block request false, and real IP header equal to x real IP, because I wanted to the validate the IP address. So no, before showcase the validation message saying that request limits were crashed. Sometimes the request may come from the proxy server or reverse proxy or kind of a normal WAF. So hence I wanted to get the real IP using this header. Hence I need to enable this, and also client IP, client ID header as well. And I wanted to return a status code as 429. This is the code which I'm going to return for rate limit messages. And general rules for the should have three points, again three attributes: endpoint name and period and limit. So here right now I'm going to implement this rate limit for get method. So where I have different kind of get methods here. If you look at my controller, so this is get method, this is get method, and this is also a get method. But here in this get method, I'm going to implement it for locations right now. So it is this method I'm going to implement it. So hence what I'm going to do is I'm going to mention it this in my app settings, like endpoint was get HTTP web, and the endpoint name was locations. So after mentioning it is as the second part was I need to mention the period time. So how much time you are going to mention it. So I'm mentioning it here is 5 seconds. That means within 5 seconds it is going to accept 2 requests. This is what the limit I'm mentioning it here. So once it is reaches these 2 requests in this particular specified time, it is going to throw the exception message and throw this status code. So as I mentioned, this enable endpoint rate limiting is set as true to ensure that limit is applied to a specific endpoint, here get locations, rather than all endpoints. If enable endpoint rate limiting is set to false, then the limit will apply globally, and only rules that have endpoint like a star will apply. And as I mentioned, a real IP header is used to extract the client IP when your Kestrel server is behind a reverse proxy. If your proxy uses a different header, then Xreal IP uses this option to set up IP. And client header again is used to extract the client ID for the whitelisting. If a client ID is present in this header and matches a value specified in the client whitelist, then no rate limits are applied. So the rate limit limiting rules are set in the general rules. So that's why I mentioned here. These are going to be taken care. The format of the endpoint setting is flexible as it supports pattern. For example, here HTTP web and the endpoint. If you wanted to mention it for like all endpoints, you just say that uh, in double quotes star and colon slash locations. So that means it is applying it for what is this concept is this is going to apply it for all endpoints, rate limiting rule to all the endpoints irrespective of the term locations inside. Okay, so right now we'll go with this one. Okay, so and once you set this, save this and go back to program.cs. So here you need to specify this throttling stuff here. So here I have mentioned this stuff. This is the throttling stuff. So we need to get through cache memory because it is using to keep the throttling request in somewhere in the memory, and hence we need to specify this. In this place, I think you can use Redis database as well. If that is the case, you need to specify the connection string in the config file and get that connection string, and then you start using of that. Okay. So here I am going with memory cache, hence I'm add memory cache, and then I'm getting this IP rate limiting, which I mentioned in the IP app settings.json, this stuff. And then I'm setting IP policy store, IP rate limit counter store, and I rate limit configuration, and I processing strategy, and then I'm adding add memory rating limiting. So this is the stuff I'm going to add it here. Once you add this stuff, save it and try to run and spin your application. So when you run this application, so still you will get this stuff which is running fine using Swagger, and this is what get locations. I'm trying it out and executing. Now I'm executing it. My get locations, it was went to web server. This is what endpoint, and I'm able to fetch my endpoints. Now when I hit multiple times, execute one time, second time, third time, that means my two request was completed, and it is going to be greater than two requests. Then it is showing a message saying that API calls quota exceeded, maximum admitted at 2 per 5 seconds. And this is the response code which we have mentioned in the 429. That is kind of too many requests. And if you look at the header part, I think here it is saying rate after 2 seconds. Right? If I again execute it, I can get it again. And if I come here, again it is saying rate retry after 2 seconds. And even if you go and try here, it is saying same thing. And go and see here in the headers, it is saying retry after 4 seconds. I'm trying it. Coming. Now go and see here, retry for 2 seconds. I'm trying it. Now it is showing it. So this is how it is working when you configure the API for rate limiting. Start about going through your configuration, like how much time you have mentioned it, and based on that time, if I say like my period time and I'm sending 5 requests, okay, that means in the 5 seconds I wanted to allow the consumer or client to execute 5 requests, then run this application, and then go back to your postman and try to run this 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now 5 requests are completed, then it is saying quota was exceeded, and This is what the general message it is coming up. Okay, so this is the process of implementing this, the throttling. That way, I think you secure your API without allowing, without, making false statements or throwing in exceptions, or put them or pull back to your, state of deadlocks or timeout exceptions due to many requests. So if you look at here, in the body section of this thing, I think coming to here, get locations and try out execute. If you look at here in this particular response header, we have a X rate limit that is 5 seconds. That is what the configurations we have mentioned. And X rate limit remaining 4 because I requested 1 now and remaining were 4. And X rate limit reset was this. Okay. So when I say another request now, so what happened is 4 remain. I'll say 2, 3, 4, 5. Now rate limit was 0 now. If I execute again, what I will do, it is going to throw case the exception after 5 request, like this way. Okay, and if I execute again, it will come because retry time was very shorter, and after that time it will execute as usual in the normal flow. So this is how this throttling is going to control your endpoints and avoid if any kind of unhandled exceptions, kind of performance or network security issues or overlapping issues, kind of stuff against endpoints. Okay, so go back to our PPT. And why do we need a throttling? So APIs are gateway to your backend resources, and throttling offers you an extra layer of protection for those resources. If you put throttling, that is extra no protection for your API, and that way it is controlling. So anyway, APIs are coming through a gateway from backend, and the gateway will control the resources. That is one kind of proxy, and the throttling is another proxy, another layer of protection. And you can deliver consistent applications by making sure that a single client is not suffocating your applications. Enhanced performance will drastically improve the end user experience. So as it is stopping to execute multiple requests and based on rate limit, hence it is going to enhance uh, performance, and also it will drastically improve the end user experience. You can control user authentication and access by rate limiting APIs at the various levels, as I mentioned, resource or API or application. You can design a robust API that can be leveraged by multiple groups based on their access level. Simplified API monitoring and maintenance can help reduce the cost of API. So these are the main reasons. So we need to have API throttling and configuring from the API itself. So this is going to be really enhance the application security, and at the same time drastically improve the user experience, because it is taking some break after reaching the specified rate limit, and then it is freshly start executing the request coming from the client, and that way it is having some healthy environment and health check to any API. And the similar way, I think customer is going to receive a message, the customized message saying that the requests are being exceeded, the quota has been exceeded as per the rate limit configuration of API. That way he is going to be satisfied with that message, and then he will try after the retry time, and then it will going to give this stuff back to the client. Okay, I hope you understand how throttling is being configured and how it is helpful to the API. Thanks for watching this video, and please subscribe this channel for more videos. Thank you.